Hello everyone and welcome to this Bullerswood Music Department GCSE Revision podcast. Okay, this one's for Purcell. Let's start, as always, with background information and performance circumstances. The composer of Music for a While was Henry Purcell, an English composer who wrote music during the Baroque period, slightly before Bach's time. Purcell is regarded as one of the most influential English composers. He is probably best known for writing the opera Dido and Aeneas in 1689. Music for a While is the second of four movements written as incidental or background music for John Dryden's play Oedipus, based on the Greek myth. The story Oedipus is about the main character Oedipus, who fulfills the prophecy of killing his father and marrying his mother by accident.
What?
And then he commits suicide. So the song features a character called Alecto, who is one of the Greek Furies. She is like a goddess in Greek mythology. And she was the goddess whose job it was to punish those who had committed sins, specifically the crime of killing a parent, like Oedipus had done. She was a terrifying Medusa-like creature who had snakes for hair, a dog's head, bat's wings, and then she had blood dripping from her eyes, and she was armed with a whip. In this piece, it is the music which calms Alecto until she drops her whip and the snakes fall from her hair, because they want to bring some people back from the dead at that point in the story. Okay, now on to performing forces and their handling. That means which instruments are used and how they are played. Music for a While was written for voice, most usually a male countertenor back in Purcell's time, and basso continuo, so a continuous bass line played by some instruments, usually a bass instrument and a chord instrument. Our version is performed by a female soprano, which is the voice, and a harpsichord and a bass viol for the basso continuo. A bass viol resembles a cello, although it has some differences, like having 6 strings instead of 4. The bass viol and the left hand of the harpsichord play a ground bass. This is simply a repeating pattern that provides the accompaniment for the singer. The right hand of the harpsichord plays a realisation, which means they just improvise a part over the bass line. The right hand realisation is very decorative and has lots of dotted notes and ornaments such as mordents and appoggiaturas, but sometimes they also improvise chords. There are some interesting things to note about this repeating ground bass that is played by the bass viol and the left hand of the harpsichord. Firstly, the rhythm is all quavers. The melodic contour is generally rising using arpeggios. It also uses sequence, so a small part of it is copied and then played on a different note, starting in a different place. And there is a lot of chromatic movement. These are all supposed to reflect rising from the dead, which is the subject of the song. So calming the goddess, but also bringing someone back to life. It's a really strange ground bass in some ways, as it is only 3 bars long, which is an irregular phrase length. You would expect it to be 2 or 4 or even 8, but an even number generally. This one is 3. Now we're going to discuss text setting and word painting. So text setting is how the lyrics are set to music. The vocal line is mainly syllabic as it follows speech rhythms, because here we're kind of telling a story. There are some paired slurrings, for example in bar 5 on the words for and a. There are also melismatic moments, so when there is more than one note per syllable. Think about the way Mariah Carey sings. A notable place to see this is in bar 10 on the word wandering. There's also a big extended melisma in bar 20 on the word eternal. Repetition of the text is used on words such as music at the start. And also on the word drop, which is sung 9 times from bar 23. There are many examples of word painting in this piece. Word painting is a technique of writing music that reflects the literal meaning of the song and the meaning that is given by the lyrics. So we have one example where the word pains, which is used in bar 12, features a dissonance of an E in the melody line against the D in the bass part. So E is not part of that chord and sounds like it clashes. In the phrase pains were eased, we have dissonance and resolution. The dissonance is on the word pains, and the resolution, which makes it sound pleasant, like it resolves, is on the word ease, and it falls in a descending sequence. This happens around bar 13 and 40. The word drop is presented in a descending pattern on the weak offbeat and is sung with unusual repetition, so about 9 times in bars 23 to 25. This represents the snakes dropping from Alecto's head. The word wandering in bar 10 captures the mood of the word and shows this wistful kind of descending legato melismatic melody. Very appropriate. And then the word eternal in bar 20 is set to a lengthy melisma with repetitive altering notes showing the everlasting atmosphere of the word. Essentially, the word eternal means a long time and it lasts for a very long time. Then we have the phrase free the dead, and this part, the music modulates to a really bright key of G major, and it contains rising melodies which kind of suggest they're rising from the dead and they are free of death. This happens in bar 16-17. And then more generally, the predominant minor key that is used, A minor, suits the kind of somber nature of the play and the text, because it's about death and goddesses who punish people when they have died and committed their sins. Okay, I'm now going to do a Mad T-shirt recap of how the elements of music are used in this piece. Remember, I'm not going to do all of them. I'll just do the ones that I think are important enough for you to remember. So, let's start with melody. The soprano line has a range of a ninth. This is quite a wide range, especially for a singer. Much of the music is conjunct or stepwise. That means there are lots of passing notes in this piece. any leaps are small and they're generally no greater than a perfect fourth, so you're not actually having to jump between notes that are far away a lot of the time. There are lots of rests to break up the phrases. This is important because it gives people time to digest the lyrics and the meaning of the song, also gives the singer a chance to breathe. There are also some descending sequences. You can hear this in bar 20. And then there are extensive use of ornaments in both the solo soprano line and in the right hand of the harpsichord. There are lots of trills and appoggiaturas, grace notes, upper mordants and lower mordants. Now on to structure. This piece follows a ground bass structure. So as we said earlier, a ground bass is a short, reoccurring melodic pattern in the bass. This acts as the principal structural element. So this repeats, whilst the melodic parts above change. It was also known as a basso ostinato, so a repeating bass line. It was a common device used in the Baroque period, and Purcell is regarded as one of the masters of this technique. Another famous ground bass would be Pachelbel's Canon, a piece that most people would know. The ground bass is heard 4.5 times in the tonic key before it starts modulating around bar 14 using motifs from the original ground bass. The ground bass returns in the original key in bar 23, and then it just repeats a further couple of times before the closing of the piece. The repeating of the ground bass until bar 14 makes that the first section. So that's going to be section A with the lyrics music, music for a while. The lyrics then change when the ground bass changes, when it's being altered, and this would be regarded as section B, which has different lyrics and then a different feeling to that section. And then when it goes back to the original key of A minor and the ground bass kind of goes back to its first kind of pattern, then that would be regarded as section A, going back there. So when it says music, music for a while again, that would kind of mean that this piece is in ternary form, A, B, A. Tonality is very closely linked to the structure of this piece. The music is in the key of A minor, so a really somber, sad key for a piece that is about death and stuff like that. The piece is originally written in C minor, but the version that we study, because of the fact that the singer is different, is in A minor. The tonality, however, can sometimes be ambiguous, and this is due to the chromatic and non-diatonic nature of the ground bass, because it's got all of those chromatic notes in it. Sometimes it's hard to tell which key the piece is in, but it's definitely in A minor. So the A section is in A minor. Then the central section, which is section B, where it changes the ground bass after those 4.5 times of being repeated, it then moves to closely related keys. These include E minor, the dominant, at bar 14, and then G major at bar 16, where we get that word free the dead, so the tonality changes from minor to major. Then we go to the dominant of that, which is C major, and then back to A major, and then E minor, and then we cycle back to A minor. All you really need to remember here is that it modulates to lots of closely related keys in that middle B section where the ground bass changes to match the different keys. The music then returns to the tonic key of A minor in bar 28, and then it stays in that key until the end. All of these modulations are confirmed by perfect cadences, so we have lots of chord 5 and chord 1 in all of those keys to help us establish which key we're actually in. On to harmony, and what we can say about this is the chords are diatonic mostly and functional, which means that their job is to go from chord 1 to chord 5 and then back again. These perfect cadences are really, really important, and they happen mostly at the end of the ground bass with that big octave leap. The texture overall is melody and accompaniment, or melody dominated homophony. So there is a tune which is being sung, and then everyone else's jobs are to accompany the vocal line. The accompaniment is provided by the ground bass, again as we said, in the left hand of the harpsichord and in the bass viol. There are some instances where the realisation that the harpsichord is playing in their right hand provides some counterpoint to the singer. So sometimes it sounds like there's more than one melody going on at the same time, but mostly it is in melody and accompaniment texture. Finally, onto tempo, meter and rhythm. Now, there is no tempo indication given by Purcell, but a slow tempo would be appropriate for this piece because it's sad and it's sombre and it's about death and so on. So slow tempo would be good for the performers to use. The meter is 4/4, so the time signature requires that we have 4 beats in each bar. This is quadruple time. The piece uses a wide variety of rhythms, but quavers and semiquavers are the most predominant rhythms that are used. Dotted rhythms are sometimes used in the vocal part, bar 10. But they are used more extensively, so they're used a lot in the right hand part of the harpsichord. This is really interesting because the left hand part of the harpsichord is playing the ground bass, which is entirely quavers. So we have these dotted rhythms against these straight quavers. Very interesting. And then there are occasional syncopations, so offbeat rhythms. You can hear some examples of this in bar 20 and bar 24, where we anticipate or suspend where we think the beat should fall, and that's really, really interesting.